Hi, today I will be teaching you about Lesson 3.19, Quadratic Application, using the quadratic formula to solve problems/equations for real-life scenarios. I will show you 3 different problems ranging in difficulty from easiest to the most difficult. Let's start with the first problem. The pilot of a helicopter plans to release buckets of water onto a fire. The height at which he is dropping the water is 575 feet. How long in seconds will it take for the water to hit the fire? The drop of the water can be modeled by t equals negative 16x squared minus 8x plus 575. Let's identify our variables. So a equals negative 16, b equals negative 8, and c equals 575. We will use the quadratic formula to solve, which is, for this case, we're solving for t, so t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now let's plug in our numbers. T equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 575 all over 2 times negative 16. So let's simplify this. So t equals positive 8, negative times negative is positive, plus or minus 64. Negative 4 times negative 16 is positive 64 times 575 divided by negative 32. So t equals 8 plus or minus, let's see what 64 times 575 equals 36,800 divided by negative 32. So t equals 8 plus or minus 36,864, the square root of that, divided by negative 32. So t equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 36,864, which is 192, divided by negative 32. So t equals 8 plus or minus negative, no, t equals 8 plus or minus 192 divided by negative 32. Now let's solve for each. So t, 8 plus 192 divided by negative 32. T equals 8 minus 192 divided by negative 32. So we get 200 over negative 32, which you cannot have a negative, so that does not work. So t equals 8 minus 192 is negative 184 divided by negative 32. So negative 184 divided by negative 32 is 5.75. So t equals 5.75. Our unit was seconds. So seconds until it hits the fire, until the water hits the fire. So now let's check that. So t equals, now let's plug in 0 to make sure it's always correct, because that's what you do. So 0 equals negative 16, 5.75 squared minus 8 times 5.75 plus 575. So 0 equals negative 16, 5.75 squared. Let's see what that is. That is 33.0625 minus 8 times 5.75, which is equal to 46, minus 46, plus 575. So negative 16 times 33.0625 gives us negative 529 minus 46 plus 575. So negative 575 plus 575 equals 0. So let's make sure. So 0 equals 0. Check. So our answer is 5.75 seconds. Now let's move on to question 2. Suppose the area of a rectangle is 170.6 meters squared. So A equals 170.6 meters squared. And the length is 15 meters longer than the width. So L equals W plus 15. Find the length and width of the rectangle. So here's the rectangle. We got our W, and then our W plus 15. Okay, so now let's solve. So A equals L times W. 170.6 equals W times W plus 15, because area equals length times width. This is the width, and that's the L, which is the length. So we get 170.6 equals W squared plus 15W. Let's subtract 170.6 from both sides to balance it. So 0 equals W squared plus 0 equals W squared plus 15W minus 170.6. Okay, now we have our equation. Let's find our variables. So A equals 1, B equals 15, and C equals negative 170.6. Now to solve, we will use our quadratic formula, which is, for this case, width equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So let's plug in our variables. W equals negative. So we are plugging in the variables. So negative B. So negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 15 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 170.6 all over 2. 2 times 1 is 2. So now we got W equals negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 225 plus 682.4 divided by 2. So W equals negative 15 plus or minus 225 plus 682.4. So 225 plus 682.4 equals 907.4 divided by 2. So let's bring it over here now. So W equals negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 907.4, which is 30.12. We round to the hundredths place. Divided by 2. So W equals negative 15 plus 30.12 divided by 2, and W equals negative 15 minus 30.12 divided by 2. This does not work because we cannot have a negative width. So W equals 15.12 divided by 2, which equals 7.56. So the width equals 7.56 meters. And to find the length, we just do W plus 15 equals L. 7.56 plus 15 equals 22.56 meters. To see that we were right, we plug in our things. So area equals length times width. So 170.6 meters squared should equal 7.56 meters for the width times 22.56 meters for the length. And when we solve, we get about 170.6 with this, so our answer is correct. Now we will do our third and final problem. Let's read it. A woman is looking at picture frames for a family picture. The picture is 13 inches by 16 inches. The frame will have the same width all the way around the picture. Part 1. Express the area of the picture and frame as a function of the border width. So, A of X equals, so we have our picture, then our picture frame. So we have a side of 13 and a side of 16. So we'll have two sides. What is the width? Plus 13. And two sides of 16, so 2x plus 16. Now we will multiply these two together. So a of x equals 4x squared plus 26x plus 32x plus 208. So a of x equals 4x squared plus 58x plus 208. And that right there is our expression for the area of the picture in frame. So now we will do part 2 of problem 3. Since she has 406 square inches of free space for the family picture on her wall, how big does she need to make the width? So 406 inches should equal the area, which we solved for in the last part, which is 4x squared plus 58x plus 208. We should subtract 406 from both sides. So we get 0 equals 4x squared plus 58x 208 minus 406 equals negative 198. Now let's identify our variables. A is 4, B is 58, C is negative 198. So to solve, we will use the quadratic formula. We are solving for width here, so W will equal negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Now let's plug in our numbers. So W equals negative B, which is 58, plus or minus the square root of 58 squared minus 4 times positive 4 times negative 198 divided by 2 times 4. So now let's simplify this. So W equals negative 58 plus or minus the square root of 58 squared, which is 3364, which is 3,364. And then we do negative 4 times 4, which is negative 16, times negative 198, which is positive, so plus 3,168 divided by 8. So let's bring this more simplified. So W equals negative 58 plus or minus the square root of 6,532 all over 8. So W equals negative 58 plus or minus the square root of 6,532, which is 6,532. So let's plug that into the calculator, which is about 2 over 8. So W equals negative 58 plus or minus 80.82, because we're round to the hundredths place, all over 8. So W equals negative 58 plus 80.82 divided by 8, and W equals negative 58 minus 80.82 over 8. We cannot have a negative width, so that is out of the question. So W equals negative 58 plus 80.82 divided by 8. Negative 58 plus 80.82 is 22.82 divided by 8, and that equals the width should be 2.8525 inches. Let's see what's solved to make sure we're right. So 406 should equal 2.8525 squared plus 58 times 2.8525 plus 208. So 406 equals 4 times, which is 8.1 3 or 1/4 because we always round into the hundredths, plus 58 times 2.8525, which is 165.45 plus 208. So 4 times 8.14 is 32.56 plus 165.45 plus 208. So 32.56 plus 165.45 plus 208 equals 406. So 406.1 is the total of that. So that is close enough that it works because we rounded off. So 406 equals 406. So that works. So the width has to be all the way around 2.8525 inches. That is our final answer.